Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Councillor Conduct Committee. The first order of business this evening is to appoint a chair, as our chair, Councillor Chambers, has given apologies for this evening. So can I have a nomination, please?
Yes, may I nominate Councillor Kemp, please?
Thank you. And a seconder?
Yeah.
Thank you. I can confirm, Councillor Kemp, you're chair for this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So welcome to this meeting of the Council Conduct Committee on the 15th of June. First item, apologies for absence. Obviously I have one from Councillor Chambers. Are there any other apologies?
No other apologies, Chair.
Okay, so moving on then. We need now to approve the record of the meeting held on the 16th of February 2022 and the record of the joint meeting of the committees held on the 18th of May. Agreed. Is that agreed? Excellent. I have no late items which do not appear on the main agenda, and I have no urgent matters by reason of special circumstances. So moving on. Declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other significant interests. If you are invited to disclose any of those in accordance with the Members' Code of Conduct set out in agenda item 4. Are there any? No. Excellent. Okay, now we move on to item 5, the Annual Monitoring Officer Report for the last 2021-22. And I hand over to Bhupinder.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome, members of the committee, to a meeting which we've not had for a long time. I will go through the report in the briefest of details. I think the report is fairly comprehensive and self-explanatory, setting out the activities within the remit of this committee over the last year, since the 5th of May 2021 to the 17th of May. You'll note from the report that over that period of time there have been a few changes to the Constitution which have enabled delegations to officers, primarily me in my role as monitoring officer, to deal with some matters in relation to dispensations, but also in relation to complaints that have been received under the Code of Conduct. The details of those complaints are set out in detail in paragraphs 4 onwards, and you can see that there are a number of complaints received. During the course of that year, we also changed the methodology for recording the number of complaints. Historically, they were recorded as a single complaint if they're all in relation to the same member or the same issue, even though there may have been a number of complaints recorded. And upon joining the council, I took the view that we ought to have a slightly simpler system, which is that every letter of complaint was recorded as a separate complaint. Now, clearly that might cause some interpretation issues as to the data as we move forward, but I hope it will provide greater levels of clarity as to how many complaints that we've received. As you can see from 4.6, following the introduction of the new delegations, there have been 6 complaints that have been made. All of them were dismissed under the initial sifting process that was agreed by the committee. Primarily, there was no matter disclosed that could be a breach of the complaint, or there was insufficient evidence, or it was trivial to an extent. And as a result of that, the committee have not had to meet in person in order to deal with those matters, and I think that's a much more efficient and an effective use of your very precious time. The report also details a number of dispensations that were granted earlier this year. Again, following a consideration of those, the committee was asked to approve delegations in relation to those, because those dispensations were not with any kind of issue that the committee would have, and the committee dispensed with that business fairly rapidly. We've had no further requests for dispensations since then. Paragraph 6 of the report talks about updates to the Register of Members' Interests. I've already signed off a number of returns that have been sent back, and hopefully we will conclude that process fairly shortly. Members of the committee will also be aware that there was a revision proposed by the LGA to the Code of Conduct. That was some time ago. I looked at the revisions and they were very minor. And since the passage of time since the LGA approved that and what I consider to be inconsequential changes, I hope the committee will agree that I've taken the view that we don't need to do an urgent review of the Code of Conduct, and we can perhaps leave that to follow in the elections next year, when members will be here for the full period of office. There's new provisions that have come out which were detailed in section 9, which are in relation to disqualifications for standing for office as an elected member, and those are in relation to individuals who have been made subject to an order by the court under the Sexual Offences Act 2003 and the sentencing codes, and hopefully we agree, all of us, that that is a good further addition to the disqualifications. So unless members have any further points they wish for me to clarify, I've got nothing further to add to the report and happy to take questions. Councillor Tranter.
Yeah, just a simple question. I very much support the revision that we made to the process that simplifies it and reduces the number of cases that come here. You mentioned 6 cases that were looked at and didn't get through the filter. In your view, did the complainants, you can't comment whether they're happy or not, I suppose, with their complaint, but do you feel that the complainants felt that their issue was appropriately dealt with, or because it's very important to me as a councillor that if someone has a complaint, that they are properly heard, even if you might consider them vexatious or trivial or something else. Is there any indication that those people who didn't get through the filter or went away incredibly unhappy, and or do you feel content that that process worked properly? And I ask that because it's an updated process.
Thank you for that, and really important question and point that you make. I think the difficulty is that if anybody lodges a complaint, unless they get the answer that they're looking for, they are going to go away feeling as though that they have not been heard. And particularly in relation to a number of the complaints that I dealt with, they were in relation to matters considered at planning committee. They are slightly more aggrieved at the decisions that we gave. But what I can say to the committee is that the decision letter that I gave and the notices were comprehensive in terms of the process that was followed, the matters that had to be considered and the reasons for it. And you will also recall that in coming to any view, I have to consult with our independent person before I can issue a decision, and the independent person was absolutely satisfied with the content and the process that I'd followed in those decision notices. So whilst people may not be happy with the results, we have done, I think, as much as we can to explain to them the process and how limited the council's powers are in respect of what you can consider and what you can't consider.
Yeah, one more supplementary question on that, if I may, briefly then. So it's fair to assume that in your judgment, had those cases come to this committee, the outcome would have been just the same?
Absolutely. I think, just for the avoidance of doubt, what has happened is that all of the same criteria that the committee would have considered, and my advice to the committee would have been exactly the same. The delegation has enabled those decisions to be taken more speedily and without having to trouble members to come to a committee, and also saved resources in the production of reports and the holding of committees. So it's a much more efficient use of public money and a much more streamlined decision-making process. But the result would have been the same.
Thank
you. Just to follow on from that one, I totally get it, and I think using an independent person is the best way, and that reassures us. The only thing we might miss, and you might be able to help us, is that sometimes we would have followed exactly the same procedure. But sometimes at the end of those, we have a learning curve. There's something we learn from that. So we have a recommendation, like, for example, just about, I don't know, social media, or we had one, didn't we, just last year, Twitter, or whatever. Is there do you still maybe keep a note of that? Would you bring that back to us if there was something to learn by? That's my first one.
Yes, Councillor MacDonald. So, yeah, if there was an emerging trend or a pattern that certainly I was of the view that could be accommodated through either further training, greater levels of awareness, then would certainly bring that back to the committee. And please forgive me, I probably wouldn't wait for the committee to tell me. If I saw that there was a pattern that was developing, I would probably seek to act unilaterally in order to bring that to the attention of members and seek to rectify those problems if there was one.
Okay, that's brilliant. And just a quick technical one, I think I know the answer, hopefully. On 5.4, with the dispensations, the ones that have been taken, the ones that are no longer, that are greyed out, that are they no longer hold them dispensations, for the correct reasons you've got here, they can't just walk back into those. If them positions change tomorrow, and, for example, I'm going to use an example of a cabinet member just becomes a cabinet member again, there's no automatic right for them dispensations. It would have to come back again to the procedure that we did before.
Yeah, that's the view that I will take. Dispensations were granted for holding that office, and as soon as you cease to hold that office, then the dispensation would lapse.
On the report, can I just also formally, I've done it already, but formally congratulate, because we haven't missed that one, just to let you know, we haven't overrode the number 8, to congratulate Vicky on her position as Deputy Monitoring Officer.
Hello. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. Maybe just an action for you and I to our respective members, just to remind them about needing to update, because Mr. Gill will correct me, but if there is no change, then members still have to declare that there's no change, rather than just remain silent. Okay, thank you.
I thought that was standard procedure. I thought we had to do that every year. Is that not right? Yeah.
It was standard procedure. I think it lapsed as a result through the pandemic, and we've reinstated it this year. What I can do, members, is I can have a word with my colleagues in committee services, and we can get you the list of the outstanding ones. So when it'll be a much more targeted approach rather than yes.
Yes, because one of the reasons I was just thinking whether I'd done my own return. So thank you.
Sorry. Yeah. Thank you very. Thank you so much for your report, and I welcome the changes you've got. I'm always looking at ways of streamlining the system, and as a mathematician we're always looking at ways of reducing the amount of hard work, so thank you very much for that. Okay, moving on then to item 6. Oh, I don't have a...
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Just to note the report.
Just a note.
It's
Yeah,
just a note.
do I recommend that we note the report?
Agreed.
Yes, okay, fine. Okay, moving on then to item 6, which is the roles and responsibilities. Okay, Bhupinder, it's up to you.
Thank you, Chair. Just whilst it's a fairly detailed report, albeit over a couple of pages, if I cut to the chase, this is about providing some further training to elected members on the Code of Conduct. I think it's been a while since members have had some training, particularly face-to-face, and bearing in mind the significant changes, I think, that have taken place over the last couple of years as to working practices, more of us actually using social media and electronic forms of communication. And particularly if we're working from home and using those, you can forget that you're conducting official business from time to time, and we all slip into that. It'd be useful as a reminder, and particularly as we're heading into election season, it'd be a useful reminder. We've engaged an individual called Beth Evans, who's highly regarded in this area, has worked for significant length of period supporting legal teams in local government and in relation to the Code of Conduct. And I've actually worked with her in a different organisation some time ago. She has an unbelievable knowledge of the law and the ethics, and she's an absolutely fantastic speaker as well. Since the report was written, I now have some dates that we've confirmed, and we will be writing out to all members to make you aware of those, but we're planning to hold the session at Medway on the 26th of September in the evening, and on the 18th of October it'll be held at Gravesham Council, and members, subject to their diaries, can attend either of those events. So as and when, we'll get some further information out to deal with exactly what is going to be covered. I've proposed that the session is held in two parts. Firstly, a general session for all members as a reminder of the roles and responsibilities and how we need to deal with declarations of interest and Code of Conduct, and particularly around social media that's coming more and more to the fore. And then the second part will be a more honed session for those members who are acting as directors on any LATCOs or on any external bodies, because there are different responsibilities depending on what hats you're wearing. And it'd be a useful reminder in relation to those to make sure that you don't fall foul of your responsibilities, either as a director or as an elected member. And the use of LATCOs and various other joint venture vehicles is becoming much more prevalent in the public sector. So again, I think it'd be a useful reminder in relation to those. Unless members have any further questions on that, I present the report to you.
I was just going to ask, will this be a requirement to attend?
I do not have the authority to mandate members to attend.
Yes, yeah.
You do, though. I do.
I would highly encourage members to attend, and any support that this committee can provide in doing that, and group whips, group leaders, then that would be greatly appreciated.
I definitely agree. I think without mandating, I do think it should be really put out there that all members should attend, because there's some really important issues there. The only comment I've got on the part two, is that that's quite a they're intense subjects there, and they are relevant to people on the board. The only thing I will say is, though, and I suppose I have to say it now because we're in that election phase, is that you will only have particular people at that part two, but you won't have no shadows from, like in the last year of this term, that would be attending. So is there some plan of action that you have in your mind around whether, like for example, the opposition leader would attend, or the ops spokes, or anything like that? Or would you do it again next year if, I mean, May's not far away, so, we'd all understand this, wouldn't we? Well, it's true though, isn't it? We all understand, all of them companies still have to carry on after next May, and it shouldn't be just focused at one side. That's what I'm saying. Definitely chief execs, definitely those officers, But if we're going to start using just some members, we should have some form of, whether it's Adam, whether it's the shadow cabinet or whether it's something, there should be some representation at that part too, I think. We may be, but wouldn't it be great that we still know, like for example, the shadow cabinet, the other side, still knows the issues that and the responsibilities that are there for all of us if something should happen. I think.
Thank you. I totally understand the point that you're making, and none of us have got crystal balls to figure out what is going to be happening on the 6th of May. So I'm working on the basis of what the current position is, and I think on that basis, certainly those members who are undertaking those roles can perhaps have a much fuller and a franker conversation if it is limited simply to those individuals with those roles at the moment. I and the team are also aware that the elections are coming. Jane is in the team and we're already planning for the elections, and in fact, we're already starting to plan for an induction process for new members, and we know that there are going to be some new members elected to the council because a number of members have said that they're not standing again, so that will be the case, and irrespective of whichever group becomes the administration, I certainly propose to hold some further training in the new municipal year for both those that are new to the authority, but also those that might be taking on new responsibilities as well. So I think it'd be useful to get back into, dare I say, what was normal, but has been disrupted over the last couple of years.
I totally understand that. It's just, can we try and keep an open mind then maybe whether it's the opposition leader and deputy leader at least gets an invite along? Because I do understand those frank, even if they're observing, I think those frank conversations are right for those people that need that discussion about the responsibilities. But just to have some representation there, it would be good to just have a small bit of representation there, I think, from the opposition side.
Through you, Chair. I think what I can say is that on that date when we've got Beth Evans delivering the session, I'm still minded, although open, but minded to leave that to those that are serving those roles. However, what I can undertake to do is I can then use that same training material and deliver that session to anybody else that might want to do that. So you will have to make do with the reserve presenter.
Can I just follow on for that? I think that'd be a brilliant idea, and even if we do that, but maybe less complicated for those for a members briefing, etc. That'd be really good. But just with those small responsibilities, just so we're aware, would be really good. Thanks very much, Chair.
Just slightly concerned that in the course of the training, confidential information may well be disclosed, which would not normally be disclosed. No, so,
Transparent council.
But yeah, but there are some things of commercial
confidentiality.
confidentiality.
It's not about your internal stuff, is it? So, yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
A members briefing would be great.
Gosh, it's technology. All that remains now is to thank Bhupinder for his report and ask the committee to note the contents of the report and support the provision of the training. Would that be agreed? Agreed. Okay. I think that's no other business, so declare the meeting? Yes.
Sorry, Chair, I'll just make sure the action around, we can't mandate members, but the whips will fully push it if possible,
targeted,
whether
yes.
we can put that down somewhere. That's great, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much for turning up, ladies and gentlemen. I declare the meeting closed.
Thank you.